All right, first off, I want to start by saying I love everybody that love me. If you don't love me, so be it. Some people are going to have an issue with what happened. I'm going to tell you something. You don't, let me start back up. Marriage is for better or for worse until death do you part. You don't, you treat your man is supposed to be number one in your life. But once you start hanging with them dyke ass friends, that's when shit go left. But and the funny thing is, when times get rough, when times got rough, you want to move out and go to your mama's house where you can live for free and got your mama them all in your ear. So now you want to bash me. Man, this shit don't work like that. It don't work like that. You're supposed to be there through the tough times and not trying to bail out. It don't work like that. So I'm just saying this. I love everybody that love me. The rest of y'all, I know somebody gonna have something to say. Yeah, he did, he that. Y'all don't know shit about me. Not shit. So you can keep them opinions to yourself. But just know, you got to put your man first if you decide to marry. Oh, and another thing, like Ply say, don't come to my funeral if I ain't fuck with you while I was living. Don't bring your head there, I get up and slap the fuck out you.
She had filed the paperwork, she had left the house, she had a court date already on the calendar, and still, none of it was enough. 2 weeks before that court date, a deputy had shown up at the door and handed over the order. She had told him she was going to stay with family. She had done what you are supposed to do. She had followed every step the system laid out for her. And somewhere in the silence between that moment and a Sunday afternoon in October, something moved in a direction no document could stop. Family members drove to a house in Colbert, Georgia that day because of a video they had seen online. A single post that made them put down whatever they were holding and get in the car. The doors were locked when they arrived. They forced them open. And what was waiting on the other side of that door was the answer to a question nobody had thought to ask loudly enough.
Not a single person that has hurt me ended up in a better situation. I tell you, God is sensitive about me, so be careful.
Her name was April Kelley. She was 45 years old. And before you understand what happened to her, you need to understand who she was. April Kelley did not have a dramatic life. She had a purposeful one. Every morning she walked into a school in Clark County, Georgia, and she went to work with children who needed more patience, more presence, and more consistency than most adults are willing to give. She was a special education paraprofessional. That title does not fully capture what the job actually demands. It means sitting beside a child who is overwhelmed by a world that was not built for the way their mind works, and finding a way through. It means showing up the same way every single day because for some of those children, that consistency is the only reliable thing in their week. April showed up. That is what the people around her knew about her. That is what the Clark County School District said about her when they lost her. That she was irreplaceable. Not as a formality, as a fact. She had been doing this work for years, not as a stepping stone to something else, as a choice. The kind of choice that tells you something about a person's character that no biography ever fully captures. She was not building toward a different life. She was living the one she had chosen. A quiet life, a steady one. Built around children who needed her and a community that had come to rely on her being there. Outside of those school walls, she was a wife. She had built a life with a man named Ricky Kelley in a subdivision called Brittany Point on the western edge of Colbert, just north of Georgia Highway 78. A neighborhood of houses set back from the road, the kind of place where people know each other's cars, where a locked door in the middle of a Sunday afternoon is something you notice. That life, the school, the community, the house in Brittany Point was the architecture of everything April had constructed, piece by piece, year by year. And if you had looked at it from the outside, it would have appeared exactly as solid as she had built it to be. But something was shifting underneath it, and the people closest to her were beginning to feel it before they could name it. If this is the first time you are hearing April's story, there is a great deal more to this case than what the headlines captured. Subscribe to True Crime Evidence Files so you do not miss what is coming, because the detail that reframes everything about how this ended has not landed yet.
She gonna get mad at me because I make a Facebook post after she leave saying God is good or something like that to that nature. And my baby mama commented on it. So the next day, might have been the same day, she go and take a TPO out on me because she mad. She was mad. She went and took a TPO out on me because my baby mama commented on my post. She told me this. And then the next day try to go and get it dismissed. But hell, it's too late. You done fucked me up. You done fucked me up. Now I got to wait and wait and wait. You don't do that shit. You don't do that shit.
April and Ricky Kelley had shared that house in Brittany Point the way married people do. The routines, the space, the ordinary weight of a life built together over time. From the outside, it was a marriage, a home, a structure that had its own gravity, its own momentum, its own logic that kept it moving forward even when the foundations had begun to crack. At some point, those cracks became impossible to ignore. What happened between them inside that house, the specific moments, the conversations, the decisions that brought them to the edge of what their marriage could hold, is not fully documented in any public record. What is documented is what April did when she reached the point where she could no longer stay. She did not wait. She did not hope it would settle. She went to the system and she asked it to protect her. She filed a temporary protective order against Ricky Kelley. That is not a small thing. Anyone who has ever stood at that particular counter, filled out that particular paperwork, and put their name on a legal document that says, I am afraid of the person I built my life with, they know what it costs to get there. It is not a decision made lightly. It is a decision made when every other option has already been considered and set aside. April had reached that point, and she acted on it. The court granted the order. A deputy was assigned to serve it. He showed up at the house in Brittany Point, and he handed it to Ricky Kelley. When the deputy spoke with April that day, she told him she was going to stay with family. She was already moving, already putting distance between herself and that house, already following the steps the system had laid out for her one by one. A court hearing was scheduled for the 21st of October, 2024, a date on the calendar. A specific morning set aside for the legal system to hear both of them, weigh what had happened between them, and decide what came next. October 21 was supposed to be the day this moved toward resolution. That date was still weeks away. And Ricky Kelley was still inside that house, alone, with whatever was building in the silence April had left behind. When a marriage ends the way this one was ending, there is always a period in between, a space that is neither the life that was nor the outcome that is coming, a gap. And what fills that gap matters enormously, because it is inside that gap that decisions get made that cannot be unmade. For Ricky Kelley, that gap had a shape. The first pressure was legal. A deputy had come to his door, had handed him a document with his name on it and April's name at the bottom. A temporary protective order is not a suggestion. It is the court drawing a line and telling one person they are no longer permitted to cross it. Ricky had been served. The filing existed. It was processed and active. Whatever he believed about his marriage, whatever version of events he was carrying around inside that house, the legal system had now formally sided with April. That was the first weight, and it sat there. The second pressure arrived in a different form entirely. At some point in the days that followed, Ricky Kelley picked up his phone and he recorded a video. He posted it to Facebook. Whatever he said in that video, whatever his face looked like when he said it, whatever tone he used, the people who saw it did not finish watching and put their phones down and go back to what they were doing. They stopped. The word used in every account of what followed is troubling, not sad, not emotional, troubling. There is a difference. Sad is something you feel for someone. Troubling is something that makes you move. That video did not stay in an algorithm. It found the people who knew him, and once it found them, it could not be unseen. The third pressure is the one that does not appear in any document. It is not in the sheriff's report. It is not in any statement from any agency. It is the absence of something that should have been there. Between the day that order was served and the Sunday afternoon when family members forced open that front door, there is no publicly confirmed record of any law enforcement escalation, no documented welfare check, no recorded intervention prompted by what was visible and building. The legal document existed. The hearing was weeks away, and in the space between those two fixed points, a man was alone in a house, posting a video that was troubling enough to make people grab their keys, and the system that had been set in motion by April's filing was simply waiting for October 21 to arrive. That is not an accusation. It is the documented shape of what happened. The process was real. The filing was real. And the gap between the process and what was unfolding inside that house in Brittany Point was also real. 3 pressures: legal, digital, institutional. Each one sitting on top of the last, each one heavier than the one before it, and none of them slowing down what was already in motion. Someone in April, Kelley's family, saw the video first. We do not know exactly when. We do not know which family member it was or what they were doing when it appeared on their screen. What we know is what they did the moment they saw it. They did not call and leave a message. They did not send a text and wait for a reply. They got in the car. That tells you everything you need to know about what that video contained.
People, please be careful when you interfere with someone else's marriage, especially if that man has did everything that he could, provided shelter, worked hard all of his life. And for that to be taken from him because someone is angry, that will make a man furious. So, please be careful when interfering with someone else's marriage. To my family, I want to let y'all know I love you, all of you. And anyone that loves me, I love you. And anyone that don't love me, well, deal with it. But I just want to let everyone know, do not interfere with someone else's marriage. Do not do it.
The word troubling had been used by investigators, by reporters, by everyone who described the family's reaction to what Ricky Kelley had posted. But troubling is a word that covers a wide range of things depending on who is watching and what they already know about the person on the screen. For this family, in this moment, With everything they already knew about the state of that marriage and the legal document that had been filed and the house that April had already left troubling, meant something specific. It meant they recognized something in what they were seeing, something that told them waiting was not an option. So they moved. They drove to Brittany Point, to the house April had walked away from, to the place where Ricky Kelley had been alone in the silence she left behind. They drove there with the image of that video still sitting fresh in their minds, not knowing what they would find, but knowing they could not stay where they were. The doors were locked when they arrived. That detail is so small on the surface, a locked door in the middle of a Sunday afternoon. But for a family standing on that doorstep with that video playing in their heads, a locked door was not an inconvenience. It was a signal. And they did not stand there and knock and wait politely for someone to answer. They forced their way inside. What they found confirmed every instinct that had put them in that car. They found April, they found Ricky, and they called the authorities immediately. The Madison County Sheriff's Office was summoned to Brittany Point on the afternoon of the 6th of October 2024. And the investigation that followed would answer some of the questions that day raised, but not all of them. There is one thing about the timeline of this case that has not been fully addressed yet, and it reframes the entire sequence of events that came before it in a way that is very difficult to sit with once you see it. Stay with True Crime Evidence Files because that detail is coming, and when it lands, it changes the way you read everything that happened in those 14 days. The Madison County Sheriff's Office arrived at Brittany Point on the afternoon of the 6th of October 2024. What they walked into was a scene that required no interpretation. 2 adults, both deceased. Both on the floor inside the home that April Kelley had filed a legal document to distance herself from just 2 weeks earlier. The house that had been their shared life was now a crime scene. Sheriff's Captain Jimmy Patton became the public face of what the investigation found. His assessment was direct. Everything pointed to a murder-suicide. Ricky Kelley, 48 years old, was believed to have taken his wife's life before taking his own. That conclusion did not come from speculation. It came from what investigators found inside that house, and from the work of processing a scene that told its own story without requiring anyone to fill in the gaps. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation dispatched a forensics unit to assist. This was not a routine call handled by a single department. The GBI's involvement meant the scene was being processed with the full weight of state-level forensic capability. Every detail documented, every piece of physical evidence cataloged. Autopsies were ordered for both April and Ricky. The work of establishing exactly what happened inside that house on that Sunday afternoon was methodical and deliberate. And what it established was this: April Kelley had not died by her own hand. She had been killed by the man the court had already issued an order against. Captain Patton noted that the couple had separated and that investigators were still working to establish the precise sequence of events, specifically when each of them had arrived at the house that day. That detail matters, because April had told the deputy she was going to stay with family. She had left. How she came to be inside that house on October 6th was a thread the investigation was still pulling on. It was a question the official record raised without fully answering, and it is one that sits at the edge of everything else the timeline shows. The family members who had forced that door open were inside the house when law enforcement arrived. They had gone there because of a video. They had found exactly what that video had made them afraid they would find. Their speed, the decision to move rather than wait, meant the discovery happened when it did, and not some later date when the silence from that house might have prompted a different kind of response entirely. None of that changes what was already done, but it matters to the shape of what followed. The Madison County Sheriff's Office and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation did not rush their conclusions. The scene at Brittany Point was processed carefully. The forensics unit worked through what the house contained, and when Captain Patton spoke publicly about what the investigation found, he was measured and precise. Everything pointed to a murder-suicide. That was the classification. That was where the evidence led. The Facebook video Ricky Kelley had posted was pulled into the investigation, documented, preserved. The post that had sent a family racing to a locked door on a Sunday afternoon was now part of the official case file, formal evidence of what had preceded the outcome investigators were now piecing together. What the investigation confirmed was a sequence. The order had been served. The hearing had been scheduled. The video had been posted. The family had responded. The door had been forced. And at the end of that sequence were two people who would never appear in a courtroom, never sit across from each other in front of a judge, never reach the date that had been set aside for them. The legal process April had initiated had a direction. It had a structure. It had a specific morning already waiting on the calendar. What the investigation now confirmed was that the process had continued moving toward that date long after the outcome it was meant to address had already been determined. Ricky Kelley would face no charges. There was no arrest, no indictment, no trial. The accountability the legal system is built to deliver had nowhere to go. The case was classified and closed in the way that cases like this get closed, not with a verdict, but with a designation: murder-suicide. 4 syllables that collapse an entire sequence of events into a single administrative category and leave everything else sitting in the silence around it. Captain Patton and his department had done what they were called to do. They had responded. They had investigated. They had brought in the resources the scene required. They had reached a conclusion supported by the evidence. Every institutional step had been taken. And still, the question sitting underneath all of it, the one the classification does not answer and the file does not address, had not gone away. It was still there, waiting for what came next. The 21st of October 2024 arrived the way dates do. Quietly, without ceremony. A Monday morning that the calendar had been holding in reserve for weeks. A specific time set aside for 2 people to sit inside a courtroom and let the legal system do what it is designed to do. Hear them, weigh what had happened between them, move the situation towards something that resembled resolution. April Kelley had been dead for 15 days by the time that morning came. Let that land for a moment. The hearing she had initiated, the date she had put her faith in, the institutional process she had trusted enough to file for, to follow through on, to relocate her entire life in anticipation of it arrived on schedule. The system kept its appointment. April could not keep hers. She had followed every step. She had recognized the danger and named it legally. She had gotten the court to agree with her. She had left the house. She had told the deputy exactly where she was going, and she had gone there. She had a date already waiting for her on the other side of the hardest thing she had ever navigated, and she never made it there. The Clark County School District mourned her publicly. The community she had served for years, the schools, the children, the colleagues who had worked alongside her absorbed the loss of someone they had described as irreplaceable and discovered that word meant exactly what it said. There was no filling the space she had occupied in those classrooms. There was no replacing what she had brought to the children who had depended on her showing up the same way every single day. The people who loved her carried the weight of October 6 into every day that followed it. The family members who had forced that door open, who had seen what was on the other side of it, who had made the call that brought law enforcement to Brittany Point. They had moved fast because they cared. Because a video on a screen had told them something was wrong, and they had listened to that instinct without hesitation, and they had still been too late. Not because they were slow, because the outcome had already been decided before they ever got in the car. That is the detail that does not soften, no matter how much time passes. April had left. She had created distance between herself and the danger. She had a legal structure in place, a place to stay, and a life that was supposed to continue past the crisis she was moving through. The system she had trusted was still running, still processing, still moving toward October 21 on her behalf. And somewhere in the 14 days between the order being served and the door being forced open, in the silence the system had left unfilled, the danger she had documented and named and legally registered had reached her anyway. She did everything right, and the process was still in motion when she was gone. That is not a footnote to this case. That is the case. That is the thing that sits at the center of everything April Kelley's story reveals about the distance between what legal protection promises and what it is actually able to deliver in the space between one court date next. It is not a comfortable thing to look at directly, but it is the only honest thing left to say. April Kelley was 45 years old. She spent her working life showing up for children who needed someone consistent, present, and reliable. She was navigating the hardest season of her life with every tool the system gave her. She had the filing, she had the date, she had done the hardest part. October 21 came and went without her. And somewhere in Clark County, in a school built for children who needed more than most people are willing to give, a chair that used to be filled every morning was empty, not temporarily. Not until things settled, permanently, in the specific, irreplaceable way that only happens when the person who occupied it was the only one who ever could. That silence is where April Kelley's future should have arrived. If you have followed this case from the beginning and something about how it was handled does not sit right with you, drop a comment and tell True Crime Evidence Files what you think. The conversation about what protection orders can and cannot do in the hours and days after they are served is one that April's story demands we have. And the next case, already being investigated by this channel, carries its own version of that same unbearable gap between the system moving and the outcome already decided. April deserved October 21. She had earned it. She never got there.
Saying God is good or something like that to that nature. And my baby mama commented on it. So the next day, might have been the same day, she go and take a TPO out on me because she mad. She was mad. She went and took a TPO out on me because my baby mama commented on my post. She told me this. And then the next day try to go and get it dismissed. But hell, it's too late. You done fucked me up. You done fucked me up. Now I got to wait. You don't do that shit. You don't do that shit. Then you cut the water off on me. Cut the water off. I come home from work, the water off. Cut the lights off on me. I had to go and get the lights in my name. But it's little low down stuff like that y'all probably don't know about. That type of shit right there will make a man lose his mind. That type of shit will make a man lose his mind. You go to your job and make everybody think you're just the greatest person in the world, but really you're a snake. Really you're a snake. You're a damn snake. And I just hope like hell that you didn't have no fucking root on me. Cause I haven't been myself in all files. All right. And again, there was somebody gonna have something negative to say. I know it. But fuck you. Bitch. Oh, and another thing. Mary Kelley, I love you, girl. I love you. Tracy Kelley, I love you, girl. Rodney Kelley, I love you. Let me name them in order. We got a squad. I got a couple that's passed. This is Charles Kelley. Y'all know Charles. James Kelley, I love you, man. Ron Kelley, I love you, man. Reggie Kelley, Dexter Kelley, David Lamar, I love y'all, man. I love y'all. Sharon, my sister Sharon Grant, I love you. I love you. Cynthia Bush, I love you. I love all y'all. But just know, she made me do it.